moving on then to the next key aspect of assessment centres, which is presentations, which you mentioned are used in 72% of assessment centres. And also, like in your book, how you mention how research shows that public speaking is people's number one fear over anything else.
Over death. Fear of death is below fear of public speaking. It's extraordinary, yes.
So why do you think this is the case, and what can people do about it in an assessment centre to perform at their best?
I'm not going to apologise for the fact that a lot of what is going on in assessment centres and in my book is about psychology, and so fears of humiliation, failure, being the only one standing up there, sort of fear of loneliness, rejection. These are primal fears, These are deep fears. And when you're talking about a presentation, it's a package of all the worst fears that we could imagine. Now, the fact is, most students, most people these days, even in school, have to deliver presentations either on their own or in teams. So it's less strange that it might have been 10, 15 years ago. But the fact is, there's a difference. So you might have done them to co-students, you might have done them even in a part-time job, you might have occasionally had to do a presentation. But the pressure is cranked up because of the importance of the assessment centre in helping you gain the first graduate role perhaps that you want to get. So there's a whole bunch of things going on here. You mentioned the 72%. Again, this is the top employers, but again, when I was talking to small and medium-sized employers, almost all of them were using at least an interview and a presentation for their assessment process. So it's very, very common. This is something most graduates will have to do. So there's as I say, there's lots and lots of things going on, but it is a very good way of seeing another aspect of the candidate. So I can see why, for many jobs, they will have a presentation as part of it. But it will only be really if in that job role at some point you might have to do presentations. It's very much job specific. So there may be job roles where you would never have to do a presentation. And if that's the case, you might not have to do a presentation as part of the assessment centre.
And what sort of presentations can a candidate be expected to make? Do they tend to be to the group or just on a one-to-one basis?
Well, there's a horrible range actually, but they can be, as I mentioned in the book, it could be your centre letter and it says you'll be expected to present on this topic, and the topic will often be related to the job role, related to that organisation. And so therefore you would be able to research what you want to say ahead of the presentation. You might not be told you're going to have to deliver a presentation, and this is what surprised me when I was talking to particularly some small and medium-sized employers. They just said, when the person turned up, they said, oh, before your interview you're going to have to do a presentation, you've got half an hour to prepare something. And to me that was pretty mean, but that's what could happen. The types of presentations, as I say, topic-wise, 5-10 minutes more often than not on a given topic, dependent on the business. It could be a business topic, a finance topic, it could be a media topic. I mentioned one of the graduates I spoke to was going for a company that was for the food PR business, and he was just asked to do a presentation on a particular food product, and he just had to think of one and deliver a 10-minute presentation. Now that, in that particular case, was to the company. So he was the only candidate on the day coming for an interview, had to have a presentation. They got the group of the company. The company employed about 12 people. Those 12 people sat there and he delivered a presentation to them. That is, high pressure.
Pressure's on, yeah.
Yeah. Often it can be to other candidates. Sometimes it's just to a panel. It's very variable.
I think I was trying to think what I'd prefer, whether it was just you get a couple of weeks to prepare one, or you're just told in the morning. I mean, there's pros and cons. At least you're not worrying about it for 2 weeks. Or
I think it rather depends on your personality as well. If you're someone who has delivered lots of presentations, and some people actually enjoy delivering presentations. When I teach a presentation sort of short course, And I often say at the beginning, how many people here like, and if it's normally, I don't know, 2 out of 10 people will say, actually, I quite like it. Some people do like standing up there, perhaps because they've done some public speaking, perhaps they've been a rugby team captain and they've had to do a speech at the end of the match. Some people have got used to them, actually enjoy them, and those kind of people, I think, would probably fare better in that sort of surprise presentation situation.
I know that when sort of company where I was assessing, we asked people to prepare a presentation in advance, and they had a couple of weeks to do so. As a result, the expectations were really high in terms of what you expected the people to come in and present to. You wanted it in the branding of the company that while I was working, you wanted them to have really done the research for it to look really slick and good. There was no excuses for people who sort of, I've forgotten it, or I've been really busy with uni work. It didn't matter. You expected a high standard of presentation.
Yeah, of course you would, and you'd really expect, what I think is, you'd expect more than a little website research. You'd expect some much more in-depth research. You'd expect someone to have read the business pages, picked up stories, picked up new innovations of that company, something more surprising than just regurgitating what was on the website or what any sort of 16-year-old for a school project could find out. There's much more expectation in that situation.
Yeah, and definitely. And if you are bringing a presentation in, just make sure you cover all the bases. Have printed paper copies in colour on nice paper. Have one on a memory stick. Have one on a CD. Just in case there's power cuts or someone's laptop's not working. Just make sure you're well prepared for
Absolutely, you do. And actually, preparing to do it naked, which is what I would call without any technology and without, with no help, not without any clothes on, but we're so used to having the technology to help us. If you can do it with no props, no technology, then if you know it backwards, if you know every detail and that you can put it across in an engaging way, then if anything goes wrong, you're ready for it.
Although presenting with no clothes on would certainly make you stand out to the assessor.
And I do think standing out, you said it yourself, how you make yourself stand out, whether it's in the group exercises or the interviews or the presentations, it's what it's about. But yes, not wearing any clothes is not something I'd recommend. No.
So thinking then about the presentations where the on-the-spot ones and you've got 10 minutes to think of something, what advice would you give people in that situation so they can structure their thoughts and give a good presentation?
Well, I think I try and say this all the way through, and it's about critical thinking and it's about creative thinking as well, but it is about thinking expansively. So we often, if you're given someone a topic, a very sort of small, limited topic, your mind often goes in a straight line. Oh, they want something like this, this and this. When in fact, before you do that, it would be much better to do a sort of a mind map sort of approach. Think, what else could this be about? And what else? And what else? Keep asking yourself, what else? What else could I throw in? What else could I try? So that you just keep asking yourself those what else questions, and very quickly mind map some ideas with little bubbles. Not a sophisticated mind map, but just something that sort of gets your brain buzzing and bouncing off on other ideas. So just think, what are the different things that could come into play here? You might even do sort of things like, on business courses, they talk about a pestle analysis, thinking politically, economically, working through a mnemonic like that, or some way to just spread out your thoughts on a piece of paper, first of all, about that topic. And then, for me, what I think is pick a surprising aspect, something that is a little bit different. Think of something a surprising statistic that you might have heard of, or something not a lot of people would know, and think about where you might place that in your presentation. It may well be at the beginning to draw the audience in, the surprise. It might be in the middle when people's attention is starting to fall, perhaps. But decide where you're going to put that surprising nugget. If you can find something like that, It depends whether they give you any resources at the time. You may be doing something on your phone, doing some quick searches on your phone, if that's allowable. But you may just be doing it from your brain, from your knowledge, from your ideas. It may be that you saw a story in the paper the day before about something. You're just trying to link into as many different possibilities as possible. And then you're going to say, I've got 10 minutes. I can only make 3 or 4 key points. What are my 3 or 4 key points? And decide those 3 or 4 key points. So you might say, here's my surprise. Here are my 3 or 4 key points. Here's how I'm going to bring this to an end. And as I mentioned, if there's some kind of artifact you could use, artifact means an object. If you've got in your bag or with you a lemon, it could be anything that you could hold up and use as an object that makes people think, what's that person going to do with that? And that's going to be surprising as well, and that's going to make it engaging. So you yourself, if you've watched presentations, James, you know how boring it is most of the time, how one presentation after another, and that's what often happens. You might have 6 candidates, one after another. Why does someone stand out? Because they're not just standing there going, I'm going to do this, and now I'm going to do this, and so they've done something different with the content. They've played around with it, and yes, their delivery would be really, really important, but they've really created some really good content, and it could be off the top of their head, as you say. In a surprise situation, you've just got to use what you've got.
That's a really good point. And as you talk about in the book, you've got to think about what is it that the employer is trying to get out of each of the exercises. And say in this example of you've got 10 minutes to prepare a presentation, they're not looking for you to be an expert on the subject, whichever random subject it might be. They're looking to put you under time pressure and to see how you can handle that time pressure of a very short period of time to research, to structure your thoughts, and then to speak about it. So it's less about the subject you're talking on, it's about the confidence you're bringing, the enthusiasm you're bringing. Are you able to hold the audience? Are you able to, as you mentioned, Kath, structure it into, I've got 3 points I'm going to cover. And also, as one of the employers in your book mentioned, if you've got a 10-minute presentation, make sure you finish 9 minutes in and then ask for any questions. Don't just be rambling away and going over your time. Make sure you hit whatever brief it is.
I think that's it. Always thinking, why has the employer chosen this exercise? What are they trying to find out? Exactly what you're saying. So if they've done a surprise presentation, they don't expect you necessarily to be an expert on that topic. You're absolutely right. But they want to see whether you can think on your feet, how you respond to a challenge, a time challenge like that. Exactly. So bear that in mind. Whatever exercise they throw at you, what are they trying to get at here? What will they want to see? What are they looking for? You can normally second guess these things. You can normally second guess, what are they wanting from this?